When three bullies trapped Kareem behind the gym, they expected him to be scared. But in just a few seconds, one was on the ground, and the others quickly realized they'd messed with the wrong kid. At first, no one really noticed Kareem when he walked through the front doors of Millstone High in Lansing, Michigan. No big welcome, no curious whispers, just another transfer student. By mid-semester, his backpack was worn, his hoodie faded, and he walked with that careful kind of quiet, like someone who'd learned to read the room before ever speaking in it. It was a cold Monday, the snow slush still lining the sidewalks, and the morning bell rang sharp through the halls. Kareem paused at his locker, scanning the names and faces rushing past. He wasn't scared, he just knew the drill. Find your classes, don't make waves, keep to yourself. In the first period math class, a few students glanced over when he walked in. A girl whispered behind her hand. The teacher just smiled, motioned to an empty desk in the back and moved on. No introduction, no curiosity, just silence. But Kareem didn't mind. He'd learned that silence wasn't always bad. Back in Detroit, where he was from, silence often meant safety. He didn't wear flashy clothes or draw attention to himself. His uncle called it moving invisible, a survival tactic from certain neighborhoods where drawing attention could get you jumped or worse. Millstone High, though, was different. It was polished. The kids wore brand-name everything. Their haircuts looked fresh, their laughs loud and confident, moving like they owned the place. Kareem saw the look some gave his second-hand shoes, the way a kid in gym class glanced at his old hoodie like it had stains on it. But he wasn't there to impress anyone. He ate lunch alone on the third day, sitting at a table in the back of the cafeteria with a tray of spaghetti, a banana, and chocolate milk. Quiet, simple. That's when he heard the laugh. "Yo, what is that? You bring that from home or something?" Kareem looked up to see Brock Simmons, the football co-captain, smirking, flanked by two other guys who were clearly in on the joke. Brock had a reputation, star tight end and self-proclaimed king of the junior class. Kareem didn't respond. Brock pushed further. "Man's eating like it's the Great Depression," he said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Kareem stayed calm, eyes down, finishing his meal. He didn't want trouble, not now. But it didn't end there. Later that afternoon, someone shoved his books off his desk in science class. No one claimed it, and the teacher didn't notice. After school, someone wrote "charity case" in dry erase marker across his locker. It wiped off easily, but it left a mark. That night, Kareem went home quiet. He took the note. 12 bus to his uncle's gym behind a tire shop. Inside, the smell of sweat and leather hit him before the bell even chimed above the door. Uncle Reggie looked up from wrapping someone's hands. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," Kareem muttered. "Just school." Reggie didn't press. He nodded, then gestured to the mats. "Let it out, that's what they're for." Kareem didn't say a word. He just changed and hit the pads, hooks, counters, pivots, clean, fast, focused. He didn't need to brag about what he could do. He just needed to remember who taught him to never let anger lead. But one small act in the cafeteria set off a chain of events Kareem never intended to trigger. The moment should have been nothing. Just a dumb joke, a quick jab, something people forget by the next period. But for Brock, it wasn't about the joke. It was about the lack of a reaction. Kareem hadn't flinched. He hadn't looked scared. He'd just walked away, and that made Brock itch. By Friday, Kareem's name was bouncing around the locker rooms. "That new kid's got an attitude," someone said. "Doesn't talk, just stares." They said it like it was a crime. In gym class, Kareem was paired with Brock for basketball drills. The coach barked out the pairings, and the boys lined up. Brock tossed the ball at Kareem's chest, a little too hard. "Come on, Tolliver, show me what you got." Kareem bounced the ball once, twice. "Just passing, right?" "Yeah, just passing," Brock said casually. But when Kareem passed it back, he snapped the ball into Brock's chest. Dead on. The ball echoed. Brock blinked. The other boys snickered. "Dang," someone muttered. Brock smiled tightly. "All right, cool." That was the moment he decided he didn't like Kareem. After that, it got petty. Snide remarks in the hallways. Gum stuck in Kareem's locker. One time, someone tripped him by the vending machines. Kareem never responded, never snitched. He just kept moving. But in a place like Millstone, silence was like gasoline, and Brock had a lighter. Lunchtime became a stage. Brock would throw loud jokes across the room, and each time, Kareem didn't flinch, didn't fight back. He just stayed focused, keeping his eyes on the bigger picture, because in the end, it wasn't about the fight. It was about what came next. When Brock and his friends cornered Kareem outside the gym, they thought they'd intimidate him. Instead, they learned just how wrong they'd been. It started with a comment at lunch, a joke, a jibe aimed at the new kid. "You from Detroit, right? You bring your bulletproof vest or leave it at home." The table laughed, but some kids shifted uncomfortably. Kareem didn't flinch. He just stared at his sandwich, choosing silence, but it didn't stop there. Brock, the football co-captain, and his friends, Logan, Ferris, and Ty, started throwing more than just insults. "Dude, I think he might actually be crazy," Logan whispered. "Doesn't even blink." Brock, always loud and brash, said, "He's just another hood story waiting to happen." That one stung. Kareem didn't want to make a scene, but after school he walked faster to the bus stop, knowing how things escalated. He'd been around this, seen it, but this time it felt personal. At home, Uncle Reggie noticed the tightness in Kareem's jaw. "You holding something back?" Kareem nodded slowly. Reggie set his coffee down, his voice steady but serious. "Sometimes, holding back is harder than swinging, you know that?" Kareem just nodded again. Reggie's words stuck with him. "You're not here to teach anyone a lesson. You're here to graduate, to build something. But if someone backs you into a corner, don't let them walk all over you either." Kareem didn't answer, but he understood. Back at school, the rumors started. Kareem had a record. He'd been kicked out of his old school. He'd fought a teacher in 8th grade. None of it was true, but no one cared. In history class, Brock leaned over from behind. "You ever seen a real fight, Tolliver? Not on TV? Blood on the floor kind?" Kareem didn't even turn around. Brock added, "Is that a threat?" Kareem didn't answer. He just let it roll off his back. The next day, after 6th period, Brock made his move. He caught Kareem outside the gym, heading for the back parking lot. Kareem had his headphones in, trying to drown out the noise, but Brock and his friends followed quietly. "Yo, Tolliver!" Brock called out. "You think you're tough?" Kareem pulled out an earbud. "No," he said, his voice calm. Brock took another step closer. "Not yet." But the bell rang, and the hallway filled with noise, but that moment froze in time. Kareem didn't want this. But Brock didn't know that pressing on someone who's been trained not to snap but to strike was a dangerous game. The next day, Kareem stayed behind after school, helping Mr. Patel, the custodian, stack desks. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, just avoiding the crowd. But Brock had planned this. As Kareem rounded the back of the gym, the lot was nearly empty, just a few cars. No teachers in sight. Brock stood near the dumpsters with Logan and Ty at his side, acting casual, hands in pockets, waiting. Kareem spotted them, but his pace didn't change. He kept walking. Brock called out, "What do you think, you're smart or something? Just ignoring me every time I speak?" Kareem didn't stop. "I didn't come here for you." Brock took a step closer. "You didn't come here at all. You got dropped here." Kareem narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" Logan circled around him, moving to the side. Ty leaned back, chewing gum. Brock stared, his voice low but laced with tension. "I want to know what makes you so special. You act like you're better than everyone, sitting by yourself, staring at people." "I'm just minding my business," Kareem replied evenly. "No," Brock shot back. "You're disrespecting mine." Kareem's gaze locked with his. "You got something to prove?" "Prove it!" Logan lunged at him, shoving him hard in the chest. It wasn't clean, wasn't practiced, just pure aggression. Kareem didn't budge, didn't swing. He just stood there. "Go on, Logan," Brock taunted. Logan came again, this time with a wild punch aimed at Kareem's shoulder. But Kareem was already inside his range. One twist, one sweep. Logan hit the ground hard, the smack echoing. Ty started to say something, but Kareem turned and locked eyes with Brock. "Don't," he warned. But Brock couldn't stop now. He lunged, thinking his size would carry him, but size didn't matter here. Kareem slipped under the punch, pivoted, and dropped his elbow into Brock's ribs. Brock staggered back, eyes wide with surprise. Ty backed off. "Yo, chill, man." The whole thing lasted maybe 12 seconds. Brock was on the ground, breathing hard, one knee down. Logan sat against the dumpster, his eyes wide. Ty's hands were up like he'd just witnessed something impossible. Kareem didn't gloat. He didn't taunt. He just stood there. Then Mr. Langford, the assistant principal, turned the corner. "What's going on here?" he asked, his gaze bouncing between Brock and the others. Brock scrambled to his feet, pointing at Kareem. "He jumped us!" Kareem looked at him. "You serious?" "I didn't do anything." "He's crazy," Brock added. Mr. Langford glanced at Kareem, then at the others. He didn't see any blood or black eyes, just the tension in the air. It wasn't what he expected. Kareem's hands were still, his breath steady. He looked more composed than any of them. "Come with me," Langford said. They walked to the office in silence. No one spoke. Kareem sat across from Brock in the principal's office, with Logan already calling his dad and Ty saying nothing at all. Brock kept muttering under his breath. "He's dead. He's done." Kareem didn't even look his way. Inside, Principal Langford stared at Kareem, sizing him up. "Want to tell me what happened?" Kareem did. Calm, straightforward. No lies. No sugarcoating. Langford listened, then leaned back in his chair. "You're lucky no one's bleeding," he said. Kareem didn't respond. Langford sighed. "You know we have a zero-tolerance policy, right?" "I didn't start it," Kareem said quietly. Langford sighed again. "Doesn't matter who starts it. What matters is who finishes it." Kareem's eyes stayed fixed on the desk. "Maybe you should talk to the ones who never tried to stop it." Langford blinked, taken aback for just a moment, unsure of what to say. But when the dust settled and a teacher finally showed up, Kareem wasn't walking out as the hero. By Monday, everyone at Millstone High knew about the fight. It was all anyone whispered about, and the looks became harder to avoid. Kareem couldn't walk down a hallway without people stepping aside, not out of respect, but out of weariness. He wasn't the quiet new kid anymore. Now he was something else, something to be watched. In the first period, the guy who used to sit behind him moved to a different seat. During lunch, there was no teasing, no comments, just silence. But that silence felt louder than anything. Kareem sat in the back again, his tray in front of him, eating alone. It was the same as before, but now it was different. They weren't ignoring him. They were avoiding him. Across the room, Brock was sitting with a crowded group, retelling the story like he was the victim. "Dude's psycho," Brock said. "Came at us like it was a movie scene. Kicked Logan's legs out like he's Bruce Lee or something." Nobody really believed him, but no one said anything to challenge it. In gym class, Kareem wasn't paired with anyone. Coach Rollins just told him to shadow drills today. No reason, no warning, just instructions. Kareem didn't argue. He followed orders without complaint. After school, instead of heading to the gym, Kareem took the long route home, walking past the corner store and cutting through an alley he hadn't used since he moved. He needed time, space, a place to think. At home, Uncle Reggie was watching an old UFC fight replay when Kareem dropped his bag by the door and slumped onto the couch. "Rough day?" Reggie asked. "People act different now," Kareem muttered. "You thought they'd be grateful?" Reggie asked, his voice calm. "No," Kareem replied, looking at the floor. "I just didn't think they'd look at me like I'm dangerous." Reggie turned off the TV. "Listen, when you defend yourself and win, people see strength, and strength scares the weak, especially the loud ones." Kareem didn't answer. Part of him wished he'd gone harder. At school, things only got stranger. A couple of teachers gave him those long, thoughtful looks. One guidance counselor even called him in for a check-in. "I just want to make sure you're adjusting," she said. "I know transferring mid-year can be hard." Kareem nodded. She smiled, but it was too tight. "Do you ever feel angry?" Kareem stared at her. "Why?" "No reason," she said quickly. But before she could finish, he stood up and walked out. That night, a blurry photo of the fight behind the gym appeared on social media. The caption read, "He thinks he's in a movie. Scared yet?" It was posted from Brock's burner account, and the comments quickly flooded in. "Yo, he dropped Logan like a sack of bricks. Don't mess with that dude." Others were less flattering. "Something's wrong with him. Why's he even here if he's gonna act like that?" Kareem scrolled through the comments, reading every word, again and again. He wasn't ashamed of what he did, but now the story was no longer his. It was theirs. The next morning, he walked into school and saw 2 security officers standing by the main entrance. They weren't always there. In homeroom, the principal's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "All students involved in last week's altercation are currently under review. A formal hearing will be held this Thursday." Kareem didn't react. He just stared straight ahead. A hearing. Now they were making it official. But he knew the storm wasn't over, not until Brock tried to rewrite the story. Brock Simmons wasn't used to losing, not on the field, not in class, and definitely not in front of a crowd. That fight behind the gym had bruised more than his ribs. It bruised his image, and for Brock, that was worse than any hit. So he did what people like him always do when they lose control. He lied. It started with whispers to teachers, casual comments about feeling unsafe around Kareem. Then came the rumors. Kareem had been kicked out of 2 schools before Millstone. He'd once broken someone's nose in middle school. He carried a knife in his backpack. None of it was true, but no one bothered to challenge it. The video Brock posted kept getting shared. It was grainy and short, cut just before Logan swung first. But in those clipped seconds, Kareem looked like the aggressor. Calm, calculated, dangerous. Brock added captions to the video. "Watch how he moves, that's not normal." He tagged it with hashtags like #Tremelstone threat and #Napard should not be here. The comments took a darker turn. "He's not like us," someone posted. "Bet he learned that in juvie. Expel him before something worse happens." Kareem saw it all. He didn't reply, didn't post a defense, but he knew silence has its own cost. By Tuesday, his mom received a call from the school. By Wednesday, a formal hearing was scheduled with the district office, and Kareem would need to appear with a parent or guardian. Reggie took the day off work. Inside the conference room, the walls were plain, and a big rectangular table sat in the center. On one side, there was Principal Langford, a school board member, and the head of student discipline. On the other, Kareem, Reggie, and a folder full of statements Kareem had written in case things went south. Brock wasn't there. He didn't need to be. His version of the story was already floating in the room. Langford cleared his throat. "We've had several concerns raised by students, faculty, and parents. It's our responsibility to determine whether Kareem Tolliver poses an ongoing safety threat to the student body." Reggie leaned forward, voice firm. "My nephew is not a threat. He's trained in self-defense. He didn't go looking for a fight. He tried to walk away. He gave them a warning." The board member glanced over his glasses. "Is it true he has combat training?" Reggie didn't flinch. "Yes. But training doesn't mean violence. It means control. It means knowing how to not hurt someone." One of the assistant principals spoke up. "There's a video circulating. We don't see what starts the altercation." Reggie interrupted. "Of course you don't, because it's edited." The room went quiet. Kareem finally spoke up, his voice steady. "They came after me. I didn't swing first. I didn't even want to be there." The board member tapped the folder in front of him. "We have reports of you being involved in an act of physical aggression." "So what should I have done?" Kareem asked, calm but firm. "Let them beat me?" Silence. Reggie sat back, his voice quiet but cutting. "This isn't just about a fight. It's about what you think my nephew is. You saw a big, quiet black boy who defended himself and assumed he must be the problem." Langford looked uneasy. The board member scribbled something down. The decision was delayed. They needed more time. Outside, Reggie exhaled slowly. "You did good." "It doesn't feel like it," Kareem replied. "They heard you. They might not admit it, but they did." That night, Kareem didn't eat much. He sat on the back steps, looking up at the sky. Everything felt upside down. He'd done the right thing, and somehow he was still the one under fire. He wondered if there was even a right way to be. Thursday morning was stiff with tension. The hearing decision hadn't come down yet, but everyone at Millstone walked like it already had. Kareem could feel it the moment he stepped inside. He wasn't a student anymore. He was a subject, a rumor in sneakers. He moved through the hallway like fog, present but untouched. Some students stared, some whispered, others just looked away. By lunch, the usual table in the back felt colder than normal. Kareem picked at his food halfway through his apple when someone slid into the seat across from him. A white girl with short auburn hair and big glasses, quiet. Kareem recognized her from a couple of classes. Always had a sketch pad, always kept to herself. Her name was Delaney Foster. She didn't say hello. She leaned in and whispered, "I saw everything." Kareem blinked. "What?" "Behind the gym," she whispered. "I was there. I didn't mean to be. I was sketching the dumpsters for a project. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to get dragged into it. But this hearing's not right." Kareem stared. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because if they expel you over Brock's lie, I'm just as guilty for not speaking up." Kareem paused, unsure if he should even believe her. "You're not just messing with me?" "No," she said, her eyes firm. "I already told the assistant principal. I'll be at the follow-up hearing." That night, when Reggie came home from work, Kareem told him everything. "She's gonna testify?" "Yeah." "You trust her?" "I don't know, but she sounded serious." Reggie nodded. "Sometimes the right people stay quiet until the cost of silence gets too high." Friday's follow-up hearing felt different. Delaney sat at the far end of the table, hands in her lap, voice shaking slightly, but her words were clear. They cornered him 3-on-1. Logan threw the first punch. Kareem just defended himself. He told them to back off more than once. "I saw it all." The room shifted. Even Langford stopped scribbling his notes. "You didn't say anything until now?" the board member asked. Delaney shook her head. "I was scared, but that's not a good excuse." Her voice cracked slightly at the end. After 15 more minutes of discussion, they dismissed the room. Reggie and Kareem stepped out into the parking lot together. The winter wind was sharp against their jackets. "She didn't have to do that," Kareem said. "No," Reggie replied, "but she did." The official decision came by email the next morning. Kareem Tolliver is not subject to disciplinary action. The school acknowledges evidence showing he acted in self-defense. Reggie printed it and stuck it on the fridge. But even with the hearing closed, Kareem knew things weren't just fixed at school. The following week, things quieted down. No more snide remarks, no shoves. Brock didn't speak to Kareem, not even a glance in his direction. Logan returned to school, keeping his head down. Ty switched lunch tables completely. One afternoon, as Kareem was putting his books in his locker, Delaney walked past. She didn't say anything, just raised a hand in a small wave and kept walking. Kareem smiled just a little. Not everything needed words, and the air had changed, not just around him, but around the whole school. He noticed 2 freshmen standing up for a kid being mocked. Outside the gym, a teacher stepped in when a student made a slick comment. In class, there were little shifts. Nothing huge, but they were there. Even after all the drama, Kareem felt something heavier than bruises on his shoulders. The last bell of the semester rang, and the halls flooded with noise again. Backpacks slung over shoulders, lockers slammed shut, and plans for winter break echoed off the walls. But for Kareem, none of it felt normal. He stood by his locker longer than usual, letting the wave of bodies pass him by. There were no more hearings, no threats, no whispers. But peace? That was a different story. He'd survived the storm, but surviving didn't always mean healing. Miss Curtis, his English teacher, caught him as he was leaving. "Hey, Kareem, hold up a sec." He turned around. "We're having a student-led assembly tomorrow. One of the speakers dropped out, and a few of us thought maybe you'd consider saying something." He froze. "Like speak in front of the whole school?" She smiled gently. "Only if you want to. I just think people need to hear from you, not the version that's been passed around." Kareem didn't answer right away. He just nodded once and walked off. That night, he sat on the floor of his room with a notepad in front of him, pen in hand. He stared at the blank page for nearly an hour before he wrote one line. "I didn't ask to be here. but I'm not going anywhere either. The next morning, the auditorium was packed. The lights were low and students were restless. Teachers lined the back wall, arms folded. Kareem waited backstage until they called his name. He walked slowly to the mic. No paper, no script, just his voice. I've been called a lot of things since I got here. Quiet, weird, dangerous. Some of y'all probably still don't know what to make of me. Nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. I didn't come here to fight anybody. I came here to finish high school. I wanted what everyone else wants, to get through my day without drama. He paused, letting the silence settle. I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm perfect. I've made mistakes. I've gotten mad. I've been hurt. But if the only story you know about me is the one someone else told, then you never knew me at all. The gym was still. I'm not from here. I'm from a city where keeping your head down is how you stay alive, where you learn early when to speak and when not to. And here I've had to learn that sometimes silence just makes people talk louder. He paused, then nodded toward the teachers. I'm grateful for the ones who listened and the ones who didn't. I'm still here. You couldn't scare me away. Somewhere near the middle, Delaney sat, watching. She didn't move, just listened, her face still. Kareem looked up again. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't be so quick to label people. You don't know what they've been through, what they've had to carry. And maybe next time, instead of laughing, pushing, or posting something fake, maybe try asking. He stepped back from the mic. The room was silent at first, no applause, just stillness. Then, slowly, a single clap, then another. And then it rolled, soft and real, not wild or dramatic, but real. That day, something cracked open in Millstone High. Not everyone changed, but a few did, and sometimes that's enough to start something new. Later that afternoon, as Kareem walked through the courtyard, a younger kid stopped him. You really trained to fight? Kareem shrugged. I trained to stay ready. The kid smiled. Can you teach me? Kareem thought for a moment. You sure you want to learn? It's not about hurting people, the kid said. Kareem smiled just slightly. All right then. First lesson. Stand tall, even when it feels easier to shrink. They walked side by side toward the exit gate, not as teacher and student, just two kids learning how to move forward. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones with fists, but the ones where you're forced to prove you belong in a world that keeps pushing you out. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories worth hearing.